Okay, good day, guys. I hope you guys had a good week. And this week, we're going to jump into week 8, supply chain management continued. Okay, so we're going to talk more about supply chain management. So let's recap what we learned last week. Supply chain management. What is supply chain management? A supply chain is a network between a company and suppliers to produce and distribute a specific product. Okay, so it's a chain between what you buy from your suppliers, raw materials, parts, this, all that. You have to buy it in order to create your product, right? So you buy all these things to create your product, and then you have to sell it to the end user. So that's what supply chain management is. Represents the steps it takes to get the product or service from its original raw material state from the supplier, and then all the stuff that happens in the middle within your company, all the the transportation, the putting it all together, the labor, all that stuff, and then shipping it out to the client. Okay. So entities involved in supply chain management, so a lot, right? Producers, vendors, warehouses, transport companies, distribution centers, retailers, right? All of them. Functions in supply chain management, so product development, right? Marketing, operations, distribution, finance, customer service. So the functions in supply chain management, like we spoke about before, this is just a refresher. What's the main benefit of supply chain management? The main benefit, the reason why you have supply chain management is because it results in lower costs and faster production cycles. So like I said, if you have a lot of suppliers and you figure out the supplier is better than the other and you have more variety of suppliers, that means you have more variety of pricing. Okay, and then you can get the lowest one and the most efficient one and all that stuff. So that way you can lower your costs and increase your production cycle. Flow of manufacturing costs, what is it? It's just the cost that refers to the process of using materials and labor to complete a finished product that can be sold to a customer. So the flow of manufacturing costs is pretty much the amount of money that is required in order to turn some raw material into your end product. Why are reliable suppliers important? So this is pretty straightforward. Why are reliable suppliers important? So if you think about supply chain management and you think about, okay, I need to build the perfect product. But you can't build a product without getting certain supplies, certain materials, certain parts from a supplier, and you have a lot of sales, a lot of demand. You need to have suppliers that are efficient and they're reliable and they get you your product there on time. Okay, so they need to produce a quality product that meets the manufacturer's needs and the product is delivered on time. Okay. An example, a company supplying metal hinges, like we said before, for doors needs to be good quality and on time. Okay. So supply chain deflation. So everyone knows what inflation is. Deflation is the opposite of inflation. Okay. So while deflation is often regarded as negative, supply chain efficiencies are one of the few examples where deflation is a good thing. Okay. So as globalization continues, supply chain efficiencies become more optimized, which keeps the pressure on input prices. Perfect. Lecture 8. All right. So we're going to talk more about supply chain management. So what are the key activities of supply chain? Okay, so there's basic steps, basic activities of a supply chain. So we're going to get into that right now. So the first one is plan, obviously, right? You have to plan. You have to source. Source means you have to like find, right? Execute, right? So you plan, you source, you execute, and then deliver, and then return. Okay. So we'll get into more about that. What does plan mean? Planning a strategy for the supply chain management process to find out a best possible blueprint of how to fulfill the end requirement. Okay, so you have to plan. You can't go into anything without planning. You can't just, if you go into things without planning, you're going to end up running into a lot of obstacles, maybe even not being able to accomplish your task. So you have to plan. So you got to see, okay, if I'm manufacturing this phone, okay, let's say I'm manufacturing this phone. Now, what do I need in order to manufacture this phone, right? So you're gonna plan and say, okay, we need the screen, we need the battery, we need the motherboard, we need the casing, we need the audio, we need the camera, we need all these, plug charging port. We need all of these things. Where do we get all these things from? Okay, this company sells the Gorilla Glass. Okay, this company sells motherboards. This company sells chargers. So you go and you find a bunch of companies that do the same thing, right? And then you find out what their pricing is and how efficient they are and see the reviews, and you get to test and trial and stuff of all these different suppliers, okay? So that is pretty much in a nutshell how you plan for a supply chain. It's vital in keeping the supply chain functioning at an optimal pace, obviously. Number two, so the first one is plan, number two is source. Determine the most reliable of suppliers for raw materials so that production process would never jeopardize, like we said before, right? Now you have to source. Now you got to find who is the right supplier for you, right? Who can give you the best product at the best time in the most efficient way possible, okay? So in a way that they would never jeopardize your operations. Number three, okay, so now you planned, you found your suppliers, now it's time to execute. The best design processes for the supply chain are now implemented, okay? So now that you've planned and you found your suppliers and you found your the operations, how you want your operations to run and all that stuff, once you figure all that stuff out, then it's time to actually execute. You have to get the operation completed. Once that's completed and is good to go, then you deliver. In this stage, the managers have a task at hand to deliver the product or service in the right quantity, at the right place, and at the right time to suitable carriers. Okay, so once you plan, right, then you source how you're going to get it done, right? Who's going to get it done for you? You source the amount of labor you need, the amount of, even if you need machines, all that stuff. It doesn't matter what it is, transport company, it doesn't matter. You source all those things, and then you execute. Then you put the plan into place. So you get the raw material delivered to your place. You manufacture it, all that stuff. It's already, now you have a ready, working, functioning product. Okay. Now, what's the next step? Deliver it. Now you got to be able to have this product delivered to as many suitable candidates, suitable retailers, carriers, whoever it is as possible. So like you'll send them to, Google would send this to like Kudo, Bell, Rogers, Telus, all the big mobile companies in order for them to have stock and for them to sell it, okay? After that, you got to worry about returns, okay? Returns handling is the last step of supply chain management process. It not only involves reviewing return products for quality purposes, but also managing their inventory. Okay, so returns, you really got to think about returns, guys. It's a lot of people just think about, oh, I'm going to sell, and they don't think about, oh, what if the client gets a defective product? What do I do then? What's my return policy like? How easy is it for a client to return stuff? Now, if something happens to a product and the client tries to send it back to the company, and it's a very horrible, long process, and it's not an efficient process, that client or that customer will and most likely will leave a negative review about your return process, saying you paid $1,500 for this phone and now I can't even send it back and get it fixed because the return policy is horrible. You know, you want to have a return policy which helps and benefits the client, helps and benefits your customer. Okay, so returns is very important. You have to review the return product. So when you do get your return, you get to see what malfunctioned in it. Now, for example, like I said before, if the charging port in my phone, majority of them are not working, a lot of the returns were because of the charging port. I'm going to go to my charging port supplier and say, okay, I got to switch you out. I can't go buy from you anymore because your charge port's not working. I'm going to find a new one. Or, hey, you got to fix this charge port for free because you're really screwing me on my clients. Okay, so So that's a very important when it comes to returns. You get to review your product, right? And also managing inventory, which is pretty straightforward. Okay, so we got into the phases of supply chain management. Now we're going to talk about buy side and sell side e-commerce. Okay. What is buy side e-commerce? Buy side e-commerce refers to transactions to procure resources needed by an organization from its suppliers. Okay, that's buy side e-commerce. So transactions to procure resources needed by an organization from its supplier. So like I said before, you have to grab raw material and stuff from your suppliers, right? So when you do that, the process of doing that is called buy-side e-commerce because you're buying from your supplier, right? Pretty straightforward. Buy-side e-commerce. Use communications technology to support supply chain from procurement to inbound logistics. So, for example, putting this phone together, your buy-side e-commerce is it uses technology to support the supply chain. So it uses like the internet. You can use emails. You can use, for example, if you're running out of charge ports, right? There's softwares out there that can show you the amount of inventory of charge ports you guys that you have in stock. And if it reaches a certain limit, it'll automatically send an order request to the client, to your supplier, and supplier will then automatically send you charge ports to refill your inventory. So it happens a lot in business where you have softwares where you manage all your inventory, how much parts you need, you need more of, and all that stuff, and you continue doing that. You also have transport companies where you have softwares where you can put out a bid, say, hey, I got to ship this to Atlanta. Can you guys bid on it? So all these guys start bidding, all your transport companies start bidding on it. You choose the one that you like the most. Okay, so they use technology for procurement. So example of buy side. E-business application developed by Shell Chemicals is an excellent example for buy side e-commerce. So prior to the development of this application, there was a danger that Shell's customers might run out of essential chemical and eventually revenues would be lost. Hence, this application helped them to manage their customers' inventory based on data shared by its customers about their usage and forecast demand for chemicals. Perfect example, guys, of buy side. So Shell, everyone knows who Shell is, right? But Shell Chemicals, they were, before they put this application, the software together, there was a danger that the customers might run out of the essential chemicals needed in order to generate revenue for their company. Okay, the essential chemicals needed to put into their main product in order to sell, which in turn destroys revenue for the company because they don't have the supplies. So what they did was they put in a software that automatically renewed and checked, forecasted, and then renewed their chemicals on a basis where they don't run out of product ever again. Okay, guys, this is very straightforward, very easy stuff. The software stuff, obviously, putting it together is not that easy, but you're not going to be learning that in this class. So, but the concept of it is very easy. Okay. So advantages of buy side. What are the advantages of buy side? So it reduces the need for excess inventory storage, right? Buy side e-commerce reduces the need for excess. So if you know how many charge ports you have in stock, and you know that let's say you have 50 left in stock, and you have 1,000 phones to manufacture. When it hits a certain threshold, let's say it hits 50, it automatically renews. So you don't have to go out and buy 5,000 because you think, oh, you know what, I might need 5,000. So you go and buy. No. You buy as much as needed in order to keep your inventory levels stable. You don't want to have 5,000 charge ports and 1,000 Gorilla Glasses. No, you want to keep everything pretty much in the same ballpark in order to create more efficiencies. Okay, you don't want to be sitting on inventory. Sitting on inventory is it's a waste of money. Quick availability of product when required. Transaction costs like invoices and data entry is reduced, right? So, for example, transaction costs. If you have a person who always has to check the inventory all the time and has to go and make sure, count all the numbers and do all that stuff all the time, all that recurring stuff, it becomes extremely difficult. It becomes extremely difficult and extremely time consuming and labor consuming, right? So you have to pay these people all this money to do all this stuff, right? So it just reduces cost. Order processing overhead is reduced, right? Order processing overhead is reduced. So if you're trying to process an order, trying to buy from a supplier, the cost of doing that is reduced if you have that software, because like I said, you don't have these people running around trying to figure it out. Maybe some of them miscounted and all that stuff, right? So it's just a lot easier this way. Now we're going to get into sell-side e-commerce. Okay, sell-side e-commerce refers to transactions involved with selling products to an organization's customers. Okay? Refers to transactions involved with selling product to an organization's customers. Let's say I'm the entity, okay? Buy side is what I buy from my suppliers. Sell side is what I'm selling to my customers. Very simple. So this doesn't involve selling products such as books and CDs online, but also involves using internet technologies to market services using a range of techniques. Okay, so where did I go? There it is. Okay, 4 main types of online presence for sell-side e-commerce. Okay, the first one is transactions on e-commerce sites. Okay, so transactions on like websites. Service-oriented relationship building websites, like customer service websites, brand building websites, portal and media sites. Okay, those are 4 types of sell-side e-commerce, pretty straightforward. Transaction e-commerce sites. So these enable purchase of product online. The main business contribution of the site is through sale of these products. Pretty simple. Go on a website, you purchase things. Service-oriented relationship building websites. So provide information to stimulate and build relationship. Okay. Products are not available for purchase online. Information is provided through website and e-newsletters to inform purchase decisions. Okay. So they're not actually selling to you guys online. They're just putting out a lot of information out there for you guys to understand. For example, like if you're trying to buy a car, you go online and you get to see the website, see all the cars, you get to build your own car, see all the information, all that stuff, but you can't purchase it online. The main business contribution is through encouraging offline sales and generating inquiries or leads from potential customers. Okay, brand building sites. Provide an experience to support the brand. Products are not typically available for online purchase. Okay, so pretty much is building an experience for the site, for the brand. Their focus is to support the brand by developing an online experience of the brand. Okay, so for example, what can we use as an example here? I think the only thing that's coming to my mind right now is if a construction company is trying to sell a home. Okay, they're building homes. What they'll use is a brand building site. So they will build a virtual tour of their home where potential customers can go in, look around, see what the house is going to look like, what's going to look like when it's constructed, all that stuff, right? So this is pretty much what they're doing, is they're trying to develop an online experience to build awareness of their brand. Okay, so portal or media sites. So they provide news or information about a range of topics. Portal refers to gateway of information. This is information both on site and through links to other sites. Okay, so just different portals, different media sites, different places where you can market your product. Okay, this is important, guys. Multiple supply chains. So multiple supply chains are very important, so let's get into it. So instead of companies having one supply chain that struggles to meet all their needs, they can design multiple supply chains that work together to serve different segments based on different markets, consumers, products, or seasons. So for example, there's companies that they don't just do one product, they do a bunch of different products. Like for example, Apple does MacBooks, they do phones, they do accessories, they do Apple Music, they do so many different things, right? Amazon does a ton of different things too. So you can't just have one supply chain. Your company needs to have multiple supply chains. So I need a supply chain for building this MacBook. I need a supply chain for building the iPhone. I need a supply chain for building the iPod. I need a supply chain for building to keep my Apple Music running. I need a supply chain for TVs, I don't know, accessories, all these different things. You need a bunch of different supply chains. So multiple supply chains, very important. Okay, good to use multiple supply chains when there are a lot of products that a company sells, like I just said. For example, a clothing company that sells a lot of jeans, shirts, hats, and shoes, they're not going to have the same supply chain for all those different products. They're going to have different supply chains, right? They'll need a supply chain for each product in order to meet customer demands. In order to keep the company as efficient as possible, you need a different supply chains, multiple supply chains. Each product needs to have its own supply chain in order to have the most the most efficient product. Okay. Okay, guys. So now what we're gonna do, there's questions that I want you guys to answer. But what I want you guys to do is write down the answers to all these questions. Every single one of you is going to be writing an answer to all these questions, and I will pick a random student in my live lecture to answer these questions for me in their own words. Okay? So if you're not on the live, you're not going to get marks for it, obviously. So here we go. Questions. Explain the difference between buy-side and sell-side e-commerce. Okay? Simple. What are multiple supply chains Why are multiple supply chains necessary at times? So what is multiple supply chains? Why is it necessary? Give some examples of companies that would need multiple supply chains. And finally, if you were CEO of a company that supplies car parts, what social media platform would you use to reach your target audience and why? Okay, very easy. I want all you guys to have answers to this because I'm going to be picking random people and they're going to be answering these questions. Okay, and that is up. Time for me. What you guys are going to do is you're going to watch this video first before we do our live lectures going forward, okay? So you're going to be watching the YouTube video first, then we'll do our live lecture, okay? All right, guys. See you guys live.